The aurora shuddered violently as it streaked through the purple clouds of the unknown planet's atmosphere. Sparks flew from the ship's exposed panels, and the alarms rang so loudly that Anna could barely hear her own thoughts. She gripped the armrest of her chair, her knuckles white, and stole a quick glance at Liam, who was fumbling with the emergency controls. The entire crew had trained for emergencies, countless drills in simulators and classrooms, but nothing could have prepared them for this moment. The planet below was alien, harsh, and dangerous, and their ship was failing fast. Sophie clutched a small medical bag, checking it for the 100th time to make sure they had something, anything, to survive once they touched down. Ethan tightened his seatbelt, his eyes flicking nervously to the windows as the jagged rocks of the surface grew closer. Outside, the landscape looked like a twisted dream, purple mountains rising sharply, strange glowing plants scattered across valleys, and a faint mist curling over sharp cliffs. None of it looked welcoming, and yet this was their only option. "Anna," Liam shouted over the screeching alarms, "we need to eject now. The stabilizers won't hold." Anna took a deep breath, her heart hammering. She had trained herself to stay calm in emergencies, but the fear gnawed at the edges of her mind. "Everyone ready?" she called, trying to keep her voice steady. Sophie nodded, gripping her medkit tighter, and Ethan gave a thumbs up, though his hands shook slightly. Liam's jaw was set, but his eyes betrayed his fear. They all knew the procedure, but knowing didn't make it any less terrifying. The ejection sequence started, and the crew was flung into the planet's atmosphere, their small escape pods cutting through the swirling purple clouds. The aurora groaned behind them, metal tearing and sparks flying, before the ship finally disappeared into a ball of fire far above. The sudden quiet after the roar of the ship's destruction was eerie, almost unnatural. Anna felt her stomach lurch as the pod shuddered violently, buffeted by the thick, strange air. Below, the ground rushed up at them. The pod bounced over uneven terrain, narrowly avoiding jagged rocks that could have crushed them in an instant. Anna pressed herself against the side, trying to stay calm. Sophie muttered quietly to herself, as though saying the words would make the danger less real. Ethan stared out the window, trying to identify landmarks, though everything looked alien. Liam tapped the controls, attempting to slow their descent as much as possible, but the pod was primitive, barely holding together in the chaotic atmosphere. When the pod finally landed, it skidded across the rocky surface and came to a jarring stop. The sound of scraping metal against rock was deafening. For a moment, no one moved, each of them catching their breath and trying to understand that they were alive. Anna unbuckled herself, checking on the others. "Everyone okay?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Sophie nodded, brushing dust from her hair. Ethan rubbed a small cut on his arm and shrugged. Liam exhaled sharply, relieved they had survived the landing. Outside the pod, the air was thick and carried a faint, sweet scent, strange to human senses but oddly calming. The sky was a deep violet, with swirling clouds that seemed almost alive. The ground was uneven, dotted with jagged rocks and glowing plants that pulsed softly, like some strange heartbeat beneath the surface. The temperature was uncomfortable, a biting cold that made Anna shiver despite her thick jacket. She glanced at the horizon, trying to get a sense of where they were. Every direction looked dangerous. Above them, unnoticed by the humans, a fleet of Sci-Fi observation drones hovered silently in the sky. The aliens inside the control pods had glowing eyes and slender, angular bodies. Their voices were a low hum, almost musical, as they communicated with each other. "These humans won't last an hour," one hissed, the words dripping with certainty. Another tilted its head, its glowing antennae quivering. "Primitive," it muttered, "and yet, they are still alive. Impossible." The humans had no idea they were being watched. For them, survival was immediate, simple, and terrifying. Anna peered at the emergency kit they had managed to grab. A few rations, a basic water purifier, a couple of simple tools, and some medical supplies. Nothing that could withstand this alien world's challenges. She sighed, knowing they would have to rely entirely on their wits and instincts to survive. Liam surveyed the immediate area, noting the slope of the land, the scattered rocks, and the glow of the strange plants. "We need to find shelter," he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline pumping through him. "This place looks dangerous." Sophie nodded, holding the medkit close. Ethan, still catching his breath, scanned the horizon. "And food," he said simply. "We need food fast." The four of them began moving carefully, avoiding loose rocks and glowing plant patches that seemed oddly fragile. Each step was careful, deliberate, and exhausting. Anna led the way, glancing back frequently to make sure no one was lagging. Liam followed, adjusting their path to avoid sharp rocks. Sophie kept an eye on their supplies, calculating what they had and how long it might last. Ethan, the youngest, moved quickly and lightly, scouting ahead for anything that could help them survive. The purple ground crunched beneath their boots, and the wind carried a faint, eerie whistle. Every sound seemed amplified in the strange atmosphere. Strange creatures, too fast and small to see clearly, scuttled away from their path. Anna couldn't help but feel both awe and fear. This planet was unlike anything she had imagined, dangerous, beautiful, and utterly alien. She glanced at her team, seeing the same mixture of excitement and anxiety mirrored in their faces. As they walked, Liam spotted a rocky overhang that looked stable enough to provide some temporary shelter. "Here," he said, pointing. "We can rest and plan our next move." Anna led them carefully toward it, and they huddled together beneath the jagged rocks. Sophie unpacked a small blanket from the emergency kit, and Ethan started collecting some loose stones for a makeshift fire, though he knew it would be tricky in the alien atmosphere. Hours passed slowly. They ate what little rations they had, drank water carefully filtered through the primitive purifier, and took turns keeping watch. Every rustle in the glowing plants or sudden movement in the wind made their hearts race. Despite the danger, Anna felt a strange thrill. They were the first humans on this planet, stranded, yes, but alive. Every instinct, every training exercise was now real. Above them, the Sci-Fi continued to watch, recording every move. "They used nothing but what they brought," one observed, clearly puzzled. "How do they survive?" Another shook its head. "They should have perished immediately. This defies logic." They communicated in quick, musical bursts, unable to reconcile the human survival with their own understanding of life and technology. Night came, and the sky turned a deeper shade of violet, stars shimmering in strange patterns overhead. The temperature dropped, and Anna wrapped herself in the blanket, shivering. Liam built a small windbreak with rocks, while Sophie checked their supplies again. Ethan's eyes were wide with excitement and fear, staring at the alien constellations. They were tired, scared, but alive. For the first time since the crash, Anna allowed herself to smile faintly. They had survived the landing. They had survived the planet. And somehow, against all odds, they had survived the first hours on an alien world with nothing but a small emergency kit and their determination. Above them, the Sci-Fi whispered once more, their voices a mix of disbelief and confusion. "These humans, they are impossible." Anna crouched under the jagged overhang, pulling the long, thick vines from the strange glowing plants. She tested the strength of each vine, twisting and bending it until it felt sturdy enough to hold a crude shelter. The wind howled across the rocky plateau, and she shivered, wishing the emergency kit contained something stronger than a thin blanket. Liam knelt beside her, rubbing his hands together to stay warm. He had a dented tin cup in one hand, filled with water he had collected from a small stream they had spotted earlier. The water looked strange, with a faint purple tint, but Liam's instincts told him it could be made safe to drink if heated. Sophie knelt a few steps away, carefully examining the alien plants. She plucked a few leaves and roots, crushing them between her fingers and sniffing them, looking for signs of toxicity. Her medical kit had only a few basic supplies, and she knew that if anyone got sick or injured, she would have to improvise with whatever the planet gave her. Ethan, meanwhile, darted around the area, setting small traps with thin branches and vines. He caught sight of scuttling creatures that looked like small insects with glowing shells. With patience and a steady hand, he baited his traps, hoping they would be enough to give the group a small meal. "Anna, this vine should hold," Liam said, finally standing and helping her secure it. Together, they tied the vines across jagged rocks, creating a small roof that would shield them from the wind and the faint drizzle of alien rain. It was not much, but it was better than nothing. Sophie called out, holding a crushed leaf. "This might help with minor cuts or infections," she said, carefully noting the plant's effects. Ethan ran over, holding a small bundle of glowing insects trapped in a pitfall. "Dinner?" he asked, trying to joke to lift their spirits, though his voice trembled slightly. Above them, the Sci-Fi watched through their hovering drones, their glowing eyes wide with disbelief. "Primitive, yet somehow they live," one hissed. Another tilted its head, its long fingers twitching. "They are using nothing but sticks, vines, and their own hands. How is this possible?" The aliens' technology could scan and analyze the environment in ways humans could not imagine, but still, it did not explain the humans' survival. Every move the humans made seemed deliberate, careful, yet somehow clever. As the sun dipped behind the jagged mountains, Anna and Liam finished their small shelter. It was far from perfect, with gaps and loose vines that flapped in the wind, but it was enough to block the worst of the cold. They arranged their few blankets inside and sat down, trying to conserve energy. Liam poured the boiled water into small cups, and they drank carefully, grateful that the primitive heater had worked. "Not bad for a day's work," Anna said with a tired smile. "We'll need to eat soon though." Ethan had been busy checking his traps again. One held a small glowing insect that twitched weakly, and another held a slightly larger creature similar to a rabbit, but with translucent skin and pulsing veins. He carefully collected them, keeping them alive for cooking. Sophie examined them cautiously. "These could be our first real meal," she said. "But we need to cook them properly. I don't know what diseases they might carry." Liam nodded. "I can build a fire even if it's just a small one." Using small stones and dry vines, he started a tiny flame that flickered and danced under the shelter. The humans worked quietly but efficiently, each understanding their role. Anna reinforced the shelter, ensuring it could withstand sudden gusts of wind. Sophie cleaned and prepared the alien plants, crushing leaves to add nutrients to their meal. Ethan handled the creatures while Liam tended the fire, making sure it didn't flare up too high. The sound of the wind outside, the soft glow of the fire, and the occasional hiss of the alien insects created a strange, eerie comfort. Hours passed and they sat together eating the small meal Ethan had helped catch. The taste was unusual, but they were too hungry to care. It was more than food, it was proof that they could survive. Anna looked around at her team, seeing the fatigue in their faces, but also the determination. "We can do this," she said quietly. "We just have to keep thinking, keep trying." Liam smiled faintly, stirring the tiny embers of the fire. "Thinking and trying, that's all we've got," he said. Above them, the Sci-Fi watched, their glowing eyes flickering as they tried to understand. One of the aliens clicked its mandibles in frustration. "They adapt, they use every small advantage the planet gives them," it said. Another shook its head. "No species should be able to survive like this with nothing but a few sticks and scraps of metal." The aliens had seen countless species fail within hours, but these humans were defying every prediction. Night fell fully and the temperature dropped sharply. The humans huddled together under the vine shelter, sharing body warmth and whispering quietly to keep spirits up. Sophie checked the medkit one last time before placing it beside her. "We need to ration everything carefully," she said. "Water, food, supplies, everything matters." Ethan nodded, staring out into the dark expanse. "Tomorrow I'll check the traps again," he said. "We can't just wait here." Anna lay back, her eyes scanning the alien sky. The stars were unfamiliar, arranged in patterns she had never seen. The clouds moved like rivers of purple light across the horizon. Despite the cold and fear, there was beauty here, and it gave her a strange kind of hope. Liam leaned back against a rock, his face relaxed for the first time since the crash. Sophie traced the outline of the glowing plants with her fingers, marveling at the way they pulsed softly in the dark. Even Ethan, usually restless, seemed calm for the first time, lost in thought as he imagined the next day. The Sci-Fi above whispered again, their voices a mixture of shock and fascination. "They take nothing and turn it into survival," one said. "How can a species so primitive succeed here?" Another replied, "We must continue observing. There is something remarkable about them." The aliens did not understand humans, but they were beginning to realize that perhaps these fragile, resource-limited creatures were not fragile at all. Morning came slowly. The first light revealed more of the strange planet, glowing hills, jagged cliffs, and small rivers of purple liquid. The wind had calmed slightly, and the humans prepared to move again. Anna inspected the shelter. It had held up surprisingly well, given its simple construction. Liam packed the tin cup and checked the fire remains. Sophie gathered samples of the plants she had tested, noting which ones seemed safe. Ethan untangled the traps and set them once more, hoping for another small meal. They moved carefully, alert to every sound and shadow. Every step was deliberate. Every decision mattered. But they were alive. And that, above everything else, was victory enough for now. Above, the Sci-Fi remained, observing silently. Their expressions were unreadable, but the whispers continued. "They survive, they adapt, they endure," one said softly. Another added, "We cannot explain it. Humans, they are unlike anything we know." The alien forest was alive with quiet movement. Strange shadows slipped between the glowing plants, and every now and then a rustle hinted at creatures too quick to see clearly. Ethan crept ahead of the small group, holding the crude trap he had set the night before. He moved carefully, his eyes scanning the underbrush, ears straining to catch any unusual sound. The wind whispered through the strange purple leaves, carrying a scent that was both sweet and sharp, unfamiliar and slightly unsettling. "Be careful," Anna called softly from behind, her voice steady but cautious. Liam carried a small bundle of rocks and sticks he planned to use for a windbreak near their shelter. Sophie clutched the medkit tightly, while Ethan continued forward, crouched like a hunter. The ground was uneven, the jagged rocks hidden beneath thick, alien foliage. Every step felt dangerous. The humans had to remain alert at all times, or they could easily fall victim to the strange predators of this world. Suddenly a movement caught Ethan's eye. A shadow darted between two glowing plants. He froze. The creature was unlike anything he had seen, roughly the size of a small dog covered in thick scales, with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce the dim light of the forest. Its claws scraped the rocks as it stalked toward the humans. Ethan's heart hammered, but he forced himself to stay calm. Slowly he backed toward the trap, making sure the predator followed him. Anna noticed the tension and tightened her grip on the plant fibers she had been tying together. She glanced at Liam, who was positioning rocks and sticks to form a small windbreak. "Stay calm," she whispered, though her own pulse raced. Sophie quietly moved closer to the center of the group, ready to assist if anything went wrong. They had no advanced weapons, no shields, nothing but their minds and the simple tools they had brought. It was a dangerous situation, yet the humans had faced danger before, and survived. Ethan reached the trap and set it quickly, using a piece of glowing fruit as bait. The predator hesitated, sniffing the air, then lunged. In an instant the trap snapped shut, catching the creature by its leg. Ethan let out a quiet laugh, relief washing over him. "Got it?" he whispered triumphantly. Anna clapped softly, and even Liam allowed a small smile. They had survived their first real predator encounter, relying only on simple traps and quick thinking. The predator struggled, but it was contained. Sophie examined it carefully, noting the strength of its limbs and the sharpness of its claws. "It's dangerous," she said. "But if we can keep it alive, it could feed us for a few days." Anna nodded, already planning how to use its meat safely. "We'll need to cook it thoroughly," she said. "We can't take chances." Even in this strange and dangerous world, the humans were methodical, careful, and clever. Survival was not about fear, it was about thinking clearly, acting quickly, and using every small advantage. Meanwhile, Liam finished the windbreak near their shelter. He stacked rocks carefully, arranging sticks to block the sharpest winds that swept across the plateau. The wind howled, rattling the thin vine roof, but the barrier softened its force enough to make the shelter more livable. Anna added layers of plant fibers, weaving them into blankets and mats to protect them from the cold night. They had no advanced materials, but they used what the planet offered, turning natural resources into practical tools. As night fell, the humans sat huddled together, eating some of the small creatures Ethan had trapped. The meat was strange in taste and texture, but hunger made it welcome. They drank carefully filtered water, conserving their limited supply. Each person shared small stories, small jokes, and small reassurances to keep morale high. Even in this alien world, amid glowing plants and strange predators, the humans maintained hope. High above, the Sci-Fi watched silently through their observation drones. The aliens' glowing eyes followed every movement, their mandibles clicking in confusion and disbelief. "How?" one asked, almost as if speaking aloud would make sense of it. "How do they survive with nothing but sticks, vines, and scraps of metal?" Another muttered, "It is impossible. Their survival should not be possible. They are clever, too clever for their kind." The humans were unaware of the attention. For them, life was immediate and practical. Anna checked the blankets she had woven, making sure no gaps would let in the cold. Liam tended the small fire they had built, careful to maintain warmth without drawing too much attention from potential predators. Sophie examined their supplies, ensuring the rationed food and water would last as long as possible. Ethan kept an eye on the surrounding forest, ready to react if any predator came near again. Hours passed with quiet vigilance. The humans took turns keeping watch, sleeping in short shifts while the others rested. They whispered softly, sharing observations about the plants, the wind, and the strange movements in the distance. Every action was careful, deliberate, and clever. They were learning the patterns of the forest, adapting quickly, turning every small discovery into an advantage. The next morning the humans set out again. Ethan checked and reset his traps, catching small creatures for food. Sophie collected more plant samples, testing them for nutrients or medicinal value. Anna reinforced the shelter, adding more layers of vines and fibers. Liam scouted ahead, moving rocks to block strong gusts of wind and making small adjustments to keep the path safe. Together they were a team, each person using their skills to ensure the group survived. Above them, the Sci-Fi continued to watch, unable to comprehend what they saw. They think faster than predicted, one said. They improvise, adapt, and survive. Every move they make shows intelligence we did not expect. Another alien clicked its mandibles and shook its head. No species should survive this long with so little. Humans, they are impossible. By the second night, the humans had settled again under the shelter, the windbreak holding strong and the blankets keeping the cold at bay. The predator Ethan had trapped had been cooked, providing a much-needed meal that restored their energy. They shared quiet laughs over the strange taste and texture, celebrating small victories in their simple way. Each of them understood that these victories, though small, were the difference between life and death. Anna looked at her team, pride and admiration mixing with fatigue. "We're doing it," she said softly. "We're surviving here together." Liam nodded, tending the fire one last time before settling down to rest. Sophie checked the medkit and then placed it beside her. Ethan cleaned the traps, preparing for the next day's hunt. They were exhausted, but they were alive. And in this alien world, alive was everything. Above them, the Sci-Fi whispered again. "They survive, they adapt, they endure," one said almost in disbelief. "We cannot explain it. Humans, they are unlike anything we know." The aliens had seen countless species fail, but these humans continued to prove their resilience, their ingenuity, and their strength. They had nothing but their wits, determination, and simple tools, but that was enough. The humans were awake before the first light of the alien morning. The violet sky was still dark, and the faint glow from the strange plants illuminated the jagged terrain around them. Anna stretched her arms and looked at the small fire Liam had kept burning overnight. It was barely enough to chase away the chill, but it had kept them alive, and for that she was grateful. Sophie checked their supplies again, counting their rations and making notes on the plants they had found the previous day. Ethan inspected his traps, resetting the few that had been disturbed during the night. Everything was routine, efficient, and careful, just as it had been since the crash. Suddenly, a strange hum filled the air. Liam's head shot up. "Do you hear that?" he asked quietly. The sound grew louder, like a deep vibration in the ground, but smooth and steady. Anna stood, squinting into the distance, and saw movement above the treetops. Strange, glowing shapes descended slowly, hovering near the ground. Her heart skipped a beat. "Aliens," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. Ethan froze mid-step, staring at the shapes. Sophie held the medkit tightly, ready for anything. A small group of Sci-Fi had landed nearby, their sleek, glowing forms stepping lightly onto the alien ground. Unlike the humans' crude appearance, the Sci-Fi were elegant and precise. Their limbs moved gracefully, and their eyes glowed with intelligence. The humans instinctively took a small step back, unsure what the aliens would do. 4 weeks, they had survived predators and harsh weather, but now they faced a species that could easily overpower them with a gesture. Anna took a deep breath and raised her hand in a simple wave. It was a small gesture, but one that carried calm confidence. Liam followed her lead, and soon Sophie and Ethan joined in, waving nervously but deliberately. The Sci-Fi paused, tilting their heads, their glowing eyes observing every movement. Their mandibles clicked in confusion. One of the aliens spoke in a series of melodic hums, their translator device converting it into words the humans could understand. "Primitive beings, they do not flee." Ethan swallowed hard. "They won't attack us?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Anna shook her head. "I don't know," she admitted. "But we show them we're not afraid. That's the only chance we have." The Sci-Fi's gaze remained steady, scanning the humans with meticulous attention. Anna motioned toward their small fire and the cooking pot, gesturing with a small smile. Liam added, "We're just trying to survive here like you." The words were simple, yet they carried a sense of honesty that the aliens could not ignore. Sophie carefully brought over a small portion of food they had prepared the night before. She placed it on a flat rock and stepped back, her hands visible. Ethan mimicked her action with a small cup of water, showing that the humans offered nothing dangerous. The Sci-Fi paused, their glowing eyes narrowing in surprise. Slowly, one of the aliens bent down, picking up a small piece of the food and examining it. Its mandibles clicked softly as it took a tentative bite. Anna exhaled quietly, sensing that the situation had shifted slightly in their favor. "See," she whispered to Liam, "they're curious, not hostile." Liam nodded, but he remained tense. The Sci-Fi were still far more powerful than humans, capable of actions that could destroy them in moments. Yet here they were, observing, studying, and, remarkably, hesitant. It was as if the aliens could not understand that these humans, so limited in technology, could survive so long on a harsh planet. Ethan watched with wide eyes as the Sci-Fi sampled the food. They're actually eating it, he said in disbelief. Sophie nodded, her voice calm but filled with wonder. They've never seen humans survive like this, she said softly. They expected us to fail. Anna looked at the small fire, the traps, the woven blankets. They had built everything with what little they had brought. No weapons, no advanced tools, just wits and determination. And now the aliens could see it too. The Sci-Fi's translator crackled again. They thrive, with sticks and fire, one alien said, clearly astonished. Another clicked its mandibles. Impossible, it added. Their small group began whispering in quick bursts, trying to communicate the impossibility of what they were witnessing. The humans, of course, could not hear these whispers, but they could feel the tension in the air, a strange mix of fear and respect emanating from the aliens. Anna moved closer to the fire, gesturing at the flames with her hands. This is what we have, she said simply. We make it work. That's how we survive. Liam added quietly, we have nothing else and it is enough. Sophie nodded, pointing at the small meal, the traps and the blankets. Ethan, still holding his trap, lifted it slightly, showing the Sci-Fi that it had caught food for them. Each small action communicated the same truth. Humans survived not through advanced tools but through cleverness and courage. For several minutes, the two groups studied each other in silence. The Sci-Fi's glowing eyes scanned every movement, every expression, trying to find weakness, but found none. The humans' calm confidence, their simple but effective methods, their teamwork, it was all beyond what the aliens had predicted. One Sci-Fi finally stepped back and let out a low hum, almost a sigh. How can a species so primitive succeed here? It whispered. Another responded, we must continue to observe. Their methods, they are alien to us. Anna felt a strange mix of pride and relief. They had survived encounters with predators, built shelter, and now faced the galaxy's most advanced observers. And yet they were still alive. The humans shared small smiles, exchanged quick whispers, and continued preparing another tiny meal. Liam stoked the fire, Sophie checked the plants, and Ethan readied the traps. They moved naturally, effortlessly, as if survival were second nature. The Sci-Fi studied every movement, unable to comprehend how these humans, so limited in resources, could manage so much. They used nothing but their minds and their hands, one said softly. Every small action is perfect for survival. Another tilted its head, watching Ethan adjust the trap with careful precision. They adapt faster than any species we know, it said. They are remarkable. Hours passed with quiet observation. The humans ate, moved about, and performed small routines without fear. They were calm, resourceful, and clever. Anna realized that fear had no power over them when they worked together. Liam's fire continued to burn steadily, providing warmth and a sense of security. Sophie experimented with plants, making notes on their uses. Ethan remained vigilant, ensuring nothing approached that could threaten them. The Sci-Fi finally withdrew slightly, their observations complete for now. They whispered among themselves, disbelief clear in their voices. They thrive, they survive, they endure, one said. Another clicked its mandibles softly. We cannot explain it. The wind began as a faint whisper, carrying grains of purple sand across the plateau. Anna, Liam, Sophie, and Ethan were preparing to move toward a safer area when the whispers turned into a roar. The sky darkened as the sandstorm rolled in, fast and violent. Tiny grains stung their faces, making their eyes water. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. The strange purple light of the plants around them flickered in the storm, creating shifting shadows that made the terrain seem even more dangerous. Stay close. Anna shouted, her voice barely audible over the howling wind. Liam grabbed the small bundle of supplies, shielding the medkit with his jacket. Sophie clutched the plants and herbs they had collected, trying to keep them from being blown away. Ethan stayed slightly ahead, using his hands to clear the immediate path and guide the group over jagged rocks. The humans moved carefully, each step deliberate as the sand lashed at them. The storm seemed alive, angry, and determined to throw them off balance. Above them, the Sci-Fi hovered in their sleek craft, their advanced sensors trying to penetrate the storm. The readings were useless. The sand was too thick, moving too fast. What? One of the aliens hissed. We cannot see, they should be trapped. Another clicked its mandibles, confused. Yet they moved through it. How? The aliens' advanced instruments could detect life, movement, and even the faintest heat signatures, but all they could see now was a swirling wall of sand. Liam spotted a large rock formation ahead. "We can use that as a shield," he shouted. He grabbed a bundle of rocks and pushed them into a small makeshift barrier. The wind howled around them, but the rocks slowed the sand in one area enough for the humans to move safely behind it. "Good thinking," Anna yelled, grateful for Liam's quick improvisation. Sophie used the barrier to dig a small trench in the sand, creating a shallow path where they could move with less exposure. Ethan led the way, crouching low to keep his center of gravity and prevent being knocked over. Anna followed, guiding the others and ensuring no one strayed. The sandstorm was blinding, harsh, and unrelenting, but the humans pressed forward. They relied on each other, communicating with small gestures, nods, and quiet words. Every movement was careful, deliberate, and calculated. They had no advanced technology to rely on, only their minds, instincts, and teamwork. The Sci-Fi tried to follow from above, their glowing eyes narrowing in disbelief. "They are moving," one hissed. "They should be buried, or lost." Another alien clicked its mandibles. "They manipulate the environment, but how? They are unbelievable." Their sensors could not predict the humans' actions. They could not understand how beings with no protection against the storm could navigate it and survive. Anna paused for a moment to catch her breath. She felt the sand cutting her face, stinging like needles, but she did not let herself falter. She wiped her eyes and looked back at her team. "Keep going," she shouted over the wind. "We are almost past the worst of it." Liam followed closely, adjusting rocks to keep the temporary barrier intact. Sophie dug deeper into the trench, ensuring the sand would flow past them instead of over them. Ethan kept his traps and equipment tied securely to prevent loss. They moved carefully through the rough terrain, using every advantage the alien world gave them. A small ravine appeared in front of them, and Anna signaled for everyone to follow her down into it. The ravine offered some protection from the wind and flying sand. The humans ducked low, holding onto each other for balance. The sandstorm continued to rage around them, but the humans had adapted. Each action, diverting sand, digging a trench, leading through a ravine, showed ingenuity beyond what the Sci-Fi expected. Above, the Sci-Fi whispered among themselves, their voices a mixture of disbelief and astonishment. "Is this a joke?" one finally asked. Another clicked its mandibles nervously. How can such primitive creatures move through this storm and survive? The aliens had never seen anything like it. Every species they had studied would have perished within minutes in these conditions, but these humans were defying every expectation. The storm did not last forever, but it seemed endless while they were in the middle of it. The humans pressed on, taking turns shielding each other from the flying sand and sharp debris. Anna's leadership kept them organized, Liam's quick thinking kept them safe from the worst of the storm, Sophie's planning ensured their small supplies remained intact, and Ethan's courage and quick actions kept them ahead of danger. Each of them relied on the others, and together they were unstoppable. Finally, the wind began to ease. The sandstorm moved on, leaving a haze over the plateau. Visibility returned slowly, and the humans took a moment to catch their breath. They were battered, scratched, and exhausted, but none of them were injured seriously. The small shelter they had built the night before had held up surprisingly well, protecting their supplies from the worst of the storm. Anna looked around, taking in the battered landscape. Broken branches, scattered rocks, and dust-covered ground marked the path they had taken, but they had survived. Liam knelt to adjust a small rock in their windbreak. "That was close," he said, still catching his breath. Sophie checked the plants and medkit, making sure everything was safe. Ethan brushed sand from his clothes, a small smile of pride forming on his face. They had not just survived, they had outwitted danger. Above, the Sci-Fi finally managed to survey the area again. Their advanced instruments had been useless in the storm, but now they could see the humans, unharmed, moving carefully across the plateau. One of the aliens muttered in disbelief, "They survive, through intelligence, not technology. Is this a joke?" Another clicked its mandibles nervously. "We must continue observing. Humans, they are unlike any species we know." The storm had proven that humans were not weak. They were clever, adaptable, and relentless. The humans regrouped near their shelter, exhausted but alive. Anna checked everyone for injuries, making small adjustments to their blankets and windbreak. Liam collected the scattered rocks and debris, rebuilding their temporary barriers. Sophie prepared a small meal, grateful that their rations had survived. Ethan checked the traps, ensuring they were ready for the next opportunity. Each of them moved carefully, aware that survival depended on attention to detail and clever use of their environment. Night fell and the stars appeared through the clearing sky. The air was still thick with the faint residue of sand, but the humans settled under their shelter, tired but unbroken. They huddled together for warmth, sharing quiet words of encouragement. The storm had tested them, but they had adapted and overcome. They had survived in a world that was designed to challenge them, and they had done so through intelligence, courage, and teamwork. High above, the Sci-Fi continued to whisper in awe. They survive every challenge, one said. They move through the storm unharmed. How can they do this? Another clicked its mandibles softly. We cannot explain it. Humans, they are impossible. The aliens had begun to realize that survival was not always about strength or technology. Sometimes it was about quick thinking, adaptation, and refusing to give up. The humans had spent weeks on the alien planet, surviving storms, predators, and strange landscapes that tested every skill they had. Anna, Liam, Sophie, and Ethan had learned to work together in ways that were instinctive, natural, and effective. They had built shelters from alien vines, caught food with crude traps, dug trenches to divert sand, and cooked meals over small fires. Every day had been a battle, but every day had ended in victory. Now, standing near their small shelter, they were exhausted but proud, their faces lined with dirt and sweat, yet shining with resilience. High above, the Sci-Fi fleet had returned. This time they approached with a different purpose. Gone was the distant observation. Now the aliens hovered low, sending out communication signals, their glowing eyes fixed on the humans below. They carried strange devices, glowing tools, and small gifts of technology that could make survival on this planet almost trivial. The aliens had concluded that these humans were exceptional, and they wanted to show respect in the way they understood best, by offering power. Anna saw the glowing shapes descend and stepped forward. She felt a mixture of curiosity and caution. Liam and Sophie followed, Ethan close behind, all four humans standing tall and confident despite their exhaustion. They had no weapons, no shields, no advanced technology, but they did not need them. They had survived everything the planet had thrown at them with their courage, cleverness, and teamwork. They had learned to adapt, to use the simplest tools in the most ingenious ways, and they had proven that humans could endure when others might fail. A Sci-Fi hovered closer, holding a small device that glowed with shifting lights. This will make survival easier for your species, it said, its voice melodic but direct. Another alien extended a hovering container filled with tools and strange instruments. You may take these gifts, it added, and your life here will be made simple. Anna looked at the strange technology, her eyes scanning the intricate lights and patterns. The tools were incredible, more advanced than anything humans had ever seen. Yet something inside her told her they did not need them. Liam tilted his head, studying the devices. They're powerful, he admitted quietly. But do we need them? Everything we've done so far, we did with our own hands. Sophie nodded, her expression thoughtful. We've survived without them. We've adapted and learned from this world, not relied on technology to save us. Ethan stepped forward, a small smile forming on his face. I think we've earned this, he said simply. And we don't need gifts to prove it. Anna stepped closer to the aliens, raising a hand in a gesture of calm and respect. Thank you, she said clearly. We appreciate your offer, but we'll manage. We have everything we need to survive here, each other, our wits, and our determination. The aliens paused, their glowing eyes flickering with surprise. It was rare for any species to refuse their technology. Even the most intelligent creatures they had encountered usually accepted it eagerly. Humans, however, were different. They were strong, capable, and proud in ways the Sci-Fi could not fully understand. The aliens communicated among themselves in quick bursts, their voices melodic and uncertain. They refuse our gifts, one asked. They survive without technology? They rely only on their minds and hands. Another clicked its mandibles and thought. It is astonishing. They are not only resilient, they are independent, clever, and determined beyond what we imagined possible. The Sci-Fi had studied countless species, but none had combined ingenuity, courage, and adaptability as these humans had. Anna smiled faintly, noticing the hesitation and awe in the aliens' behavior. She realized that the Sci-Fi were beginning to understand something important. Survival was not just about tools, strength, or technology. Survival was about resourcefulness, intelligence, and the will to endure. Humans had proven that in every challenge they had faced, from predators to sandstorms, from strange plants to alien landscapes, their success was not a matter of luck. It was a matter of skill, teamwork, and determination. The Sci-Fi descended slightly lower, their glowing forms hovering gently near the humans. One alien extended a hand, its long slender fingers almost delicate, yet powerful. "Your species, it is unlike any we have encountered," it said softly. "Your intelligence, creativity, and courage are extraordinary. You survive in ways we cannot predict or explain." Anna nodded, her smile steady. "We survive because we must," she said. "Because we will. That is all the reason we need." Liam adjusted a small rock near the fire, keeping it stable. Sophie checked the plants and herbs they had collected, ensuring they were safe for future use. Ethan secured the traps and small tools they had improvised. They had done all of this with their own hands and minds, relying on observation, experimentation, and teamwork. They had endured, adapted, and thrived, proving that humans could overcome challenges that seemed impossible. The Zyphar whispered among themselves, their glowing eyes wide with respect and astonishment. "They do not need our technology," one said. "They survive and thrive on their own." "Incredible." Another added, "They are remarkable. Beyond what we expected. Their resilience is unmatched." For the first time, the aliens had encountered a species whose strength lay not in tools or weapons, but in intelligence, ingenuity, and an unbreakable will. Anna looked at her team, proud of everything they had accomplished. They had faced storms, predators, and an alien environment more dangerous than anything on Earth. They had survived and adapted, using only the resources around them and the determination inside them. And now, even the most advanced aliens in the galaxy recognized their strength. "We'll manage," she repeated softly, looking at the glowing faces of the Zyphar. "We don't need your gifts. We have everything we need within ourselves." The aliens slowly nodded, their glowing forms hovering in silent acknowledgement. They had observed, analyzed, and recorded every moment of the human struggle and triumph. And finally they had come to a clear conclusion. These humans were different. They were intelligent, resilient, adaptable, and courageous. They had survived challenges that would have destroyed almost any other species. And they had done it on their own terms. "They are incredible," one alien finally said almost reverently. Another clicked its mandibles in agreement. "They are unlike any life we have ever studied. They think, adapt, and endure. We must record this. We must learn from them." The humans, of course, did not understand the full scope of the Zyphar's amazement, but they could sense it. There was respect in the alien eyes, quiet awe, and acknowledgement of human strength. Anna, Liam, Sophie, and Ethan spent the rest of the day preparing for the next stage of survival on the alien planet. They rebuilt small parts of their shelter, repaired some tools, and reinforced the trenches they had dug for storms. They worked calmly, efficiently, and together, knowing that every small effort increased their chances of thriving. Above them, the Zyphar observed from a distance, careful not to interfere, content to watch the humans continue to prove themselves. Night fell, and the alien sky glowed softly with violet light. The humans sat together near the small fire, sharing a quiet meal, reflecting on everything they had endured. They laughed softly at small mishaps, shared observations about the strange plants and creatures, and whispered about strategies for the coming days. Every word, every gesture, every action reflected teamwork, courage, and determination. The Zyphar, still hovering above, could not tear their eyes away. "They survive every challenge," one said. "They thrive without technology, without weapons, without advanced tools. Their minds, their courage, it is extraordinary." Another whispered, "We cannot predict them, control them, or fully understand them. Humans are incredible." The aliens had learned something important. Strength was not always measured by technology, and power did not always lie in weapons. Sometimes, it lay in resilience, cleverness, and the will to endure. Anna looked at her team one last time before night fully settled. She felt a deep sense of pride not just for herself but for all of them. They had survived against impossible odds, proved themselves to the most advanced species in the galaxy, and done it with nothing but their own minds and hands. She knew that humans were extraordinary, not because of any tool or technology, but because they refused to give up. The small fire flickered in the alien darkness, casting shadows across the glowing forest. The humans rested, exhausted but alive, proud but humble, ready to face whatever challenges the planet had in store. Above them, the Zyphar hovered silently, recording, analyzing, and learning. And finally, after witnessing the humans' resilience, cleverness, and courage firsthand, they acknowledged the truth in quiet, glowing voices. "They are incredible."